Hi everyone, my name is Taryn and you are watching my channel, Birdhouse Blooms. Per usual, it's been forever since I've put out a video, but that's just how I operate, I guess. A big life update. Remember a few years ago when we moved into an apartment and I grew tulips and seedlings in my apartment and then we moved into a house? Well, we kind of did that again. Is it my favorite thing that I keep having to start the farm over? Not really. My favorite part of flower farming is not building a new farm and setting up infrastructure, but we just have to find the right place for our family and what works. And so we did move again. Still in the same area near Raleigh, still in North Carolina, still zone 8A. And this is another new chapter. Scully has come to visit. She knows when I turn on the camera, I think. So we moved into this house in March. And since then, I've been building a new farm again. This is just video footage of the progress. Looking back on it as I do the edits, it's really funny because already so much is different. Let's pause for the sirens real quick. So as I was saying, so much has changed since I've taken all of these videos, but I definitely wanted to include all of you on what I was doing. And I think this is an important process to share. I really wanted to share it. So even though the garden is blooming now and looks really good, I wanted you to see where it started from. The main differences about this house and this property compared to the last one is that it's flat. And also the yard is much bigger. So our entire lot is 0.35 acres, and that includes our house and our front yard. But something I really love about this property is that it's pie shaped, and the front of the house is on the point, and the whole rest of the property is the backyard. So I get a ton of space to grow. I'm getting to plant a lot more perennials and bigger plants than I could at the last place. And just the fact that it's flat and I'm not rolling down the hill while I'm trying to plant and harvest things makes things so much easier. My tripod and my camera doesn't fall and roll around. It's just so much easier to take videos and to just function in general. Part of the property is a hill in the back, but most of it is flat. I do plan on utilizing the hill eventually, but that's not on my current project list. Let's just get into the footage because I don't really know what else to say about our craziness and our decisions to move all the time. So let's just. Skelly wanted to talk to you guys too. She missed you too. And this will be the third time I've built a farm. I've changed something about it every single time. You just never know what I'm going to be getting into. All right, here it is.
So I just wanted to show a little bit of a reminder of what the garden at the old house looked like before we moved out. It's a raised bed garden and pretty small. When we sold our house, our realtor asked us to remove the entire garden. A lot of the garden boxes went to a friend, and I sold a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and I had to get rid of all my plants. But this is one that I dug up and saved. I didn't want to save too much because I honestly didn't know where we were going to end up and what I could take with me. In January of 2026, we went under contract for a new home. While we were waiting for this house to be done, we moved into an apartment, and again, I grew many things in there just for fun. This quote from Jess from Roots and Refuge Farm is one of my favorites, and it's "Let your waiting room be your classroom." So, of course, I had already ordered my spring bulbs before I knew we were moving. So, again, I found a way to grow them in the apartment. I didn't want to spend much money putting in a garden, so I just used our moving boxes in cardboard boxes that we had laying around to plant these tulip bulbs, and a lot of them actually did pretty well in this system. Every year, I really struggle growing tulips. I think our climate is just too hot for tulips, but every year I still try and I like experimenting and doing different things with them. So I did order my bulbs already for spring 2027. I'm going to be doing some different things to try to get to force them for Valentine's Day again. They really do bloom too early for me to use them for much of anything in the spring. My plan this year is to try to sell a subscription because they usually bloom after Valentine's Day, but before Easter and Mother's Day. So I may just try to do a spring tulip subscription and pre-sell the flowers before they start blooming so I have somewhere to sell them. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully give up tulips. A lot of years I really want to give them up or scale back a lot, which this year I did scale back quite a bit, but I still just can't help it. They're one of my favorite flowers. I'm going to continue to keep trying to grow them, and I think I'll just always grow tulips because they're amazing. This year coming up, I am going to try soil forcing tulips instead of hydroponic forcing. I just don't have a space cool enough under grow lights to do the hydroponic growing. You really do need a cooler space. Tulips do not like to be warm, and wherever I grow these tulips hydroponically, the lights just heat up the room too much. I don't have a cold basement or anything like that. So I'm going to be trying soil forcing this year to get Valentine's Day tulips. I'm also going to add ranunculus and anemones to that mix and just try some new things for Valentine's Day this year. I also grew tons of seedlings and bulbs in the apartment to try to get ready for our spring move into the new place. And these look really good right now, but I accidentally killed most of these seedlings with fish fertilizer. I had switched from Neptune's Harvest to a different one, and the mixing directions were not the same. And I don't know why, but I just didn't think to look at that, and I mixed it the same way that I do Neptune's Harvest, and that was a big mistake. So a lot of these seedlings, unfortunately, did not make it or were severely sick. I still planted almost all of the seedlings that survived out just so I could get roots in the ground, and that was kind of their purpose new in the new cutting garden was to enrich the soil. But I'm actually very surprised. Some of these actually did pretty well. So when I do update videos, I'll be sure to point out the things that I grew from seedlings from the apartment just because it's kind of amazing how many of them survived and did well, even after I tortured them with the fish fertilizer. I also did try growing a lot of new things from seed this year. These are all echinacea, and these actually turned out really well and are still growing in the garden right now. The snapdragons did not do well at all. They pretty much all died. So those were not a new thing for me. But I also tried foxglove and delphiniums, and they are out in the garden right now doing really well. I did not stake them up, and my goal is just to get them to go to seed and reseed themselves for the next year. I believe they're perennial, but only for a few years, so hopefully they just self seed every year and keep coming back. In the apartment, I also tried to grow Iceland poppies from seed, and those absolutely did not survive transplanting or the warm spring that we had. But I did confirm that I'm able to get them to germinate in the cell trays, which I'm really excited about for this season coming up. I love Iceland poppies, but I've never had success growing them. I also grew a ton of Lysianthus seeds as usual that you can see here. I always have algae on my lisianthus and it just never seems to affect anything. And my lisianthus are actually doing really well. These poor ranunculus did not survive the fish fertilizer tragedy, but I also want to point out in the pink bucket, I don't know if you caught it or not, there she is. I did dig up and keep Strawberry Hill Rose, and so she made the move to the new house as well. And this was the end of my second apartment gardening journey. I'm glad that I get to move into a house again with my husband and we get to have our own land, but I still learned a lot and I still grew a lot on my little balcony. At the end of March, we were able to move into our new house, and I immediately felt the need to try to plant things and get the new garden up and running. These little seedlings didn't survive. If you've ever moved onto new construction, you know that you don't really have any topsoil, it's just mud. So I wanted to see if I could plant some stuff directly into the ground, but that did not work. So as usual, I'm bringing in a topsoil compost mix and doing a raised bed situation. This is the only bed where I took the time to put edging around it. I want to put edging around all of my beds, but it was just taking way too long. And I figured that was something I could come back to over the fall and winter time when things were less chaotic. It was kind of hard having such a blank slate to work with, but I'm not complaining. I just didn't really know where to start. So I ended up just putting down the first bed in a direction that I thought made sense. And I really wanted to start with about 5 beds for cutting and then add perennial beds surrounding all of those. I'm going to cut on everything, but I just wanted to start some rows that are very straight and traditional, kind of like farm rows. But I eventually want to build the garden into something that's beautiful and has more artistic design to it. So I kind of refer to this year's garden as like the skeleton, where I'm just putting down the framework and then I plan on building in different heights and different colors and all kinds of things with perennials and adding shapes and textures as I go along. I did dig up and save some dahlias from the previous house and kept them in the fridge all winter long, and some of them actually survived and look good. I interplanted sunflowers in with these dahlia tubers. I always start my sunflowers in seed trays and transplant them out. That is something I learned from Lisa Mason Ziegler at the Gardener's Workshop, and that just helps me get some size on them before I put them out because I do struggle with birds just coming and eating sunflower seedlings, so this just works better for me. I was trying to get these sunflowers to bloom in time for Mother's Day, and I didn't quite make it, but I think next season I have a real shot. They ended up blooming in June, which was just a bit too late. I ended up having to pivot this year for my Mother's Day bouquets, but you will see that in an upcoming video. So the first 2 rows I built were for dahlias, and then I added a third row in mid-April. And this ended up being a lot of things like zinnias and celosia and stuff like that. You can see I'm just laying down. I'm measuring the pathway here with some landscape fabric, but I eventually stopped doing that. It was just taking way too long. But I'm laying down a layer of cardboard with just our moving boxes before putting down the compost. And it was just so hot during this time when I was moving all this soil that it was faster and easier to literally wheelbarrow this soil through our house. So I was taking it from our driveway through the garage and then out to the back because it was not in the sun and it was the flattest, most direct route. And it was so much easier to wheel my garden cart across our kitchen floor than through the lumpy sod outside. The next thing I started working on was my rose garden. This is another example of how like the rows are extremely straight, but I eventually would like to add curves to them and different plants and shapes and things to make it less linear and have more of an organic flow to it. I will say, I think I have about a 70% success rate on these roses. A lot of them survived. It was very hot when I was planting these, and they were all ordered from Bare Roots. I think all of my roses that I ordered from David Austin did really well. And then I just had maybe five out of the like 15 or 20 that didn't make it. I don't blame them at all. I just think our temperature was so hot. This new compost soil mix was probably a little hot, and keeping it watered was a little challenging. But overall, I'm very happy with the way this looks, and I can't wait for the future videos where I get to show you the update on how all of these roses are doing. This Baptisia and also the Hypericum shrub, I did bring with me from my previous home as well. They were all in the pink bucket together along with the Strawberry Hill Rose. I really love these plants, but you have to order them in bulk from Farmer Bailey. And so when I had the opportunity to bring one with me, I did that because I don't think I really want to make another bulk purchase of Hypericum for this garden. One of my goals with this new garden is that the plants are in raised beds, but not to the point where their roots cannot get down into the natural earth underneath. So these are just raised enough so that I can get the roots buried, and then eventually this cardboard's going to decompose and then the roots can go further down into the earth. At this point, I have dahlias starting to come in that I've ordered, and those are getting planted out into the beds that I have already prepped. I also already had everything labeled, so I knew where everything was going to go. So as the dahlia tubers came in, I knew where to put them. You will notice that I'm using pine straw to mulch these beds. I don't like pine straw and I really hate it, but it was the least expensive option and the easiest thing to move around, so that's what I did here. I think over the winter time, I'll slowly work on just replacing the pine straw with a shredded wood mulch or a leaf mulch, which is my favorite thing to use. In mid-April, I had another 8 yards of the compost topsoil mix brought in. So I'm up to a total of 13 yards at this point, and you'll see later on that that's not the end. But again, this is not my favorite part of flower farming, but it is just what I have found when dealing with clay and rocky soils is that I like to start out this way and eventually let the plants work themselves into the natural ground, but I always build the soil up first. I don't like digging in, and I have found that when I do plant stuff in this construction mud mess that they just drown and don't do very well. I think the rose garden was a real turning point for my confidence in how the overall garden was going to look. It just added a lot of structure and direction. It kind of divided the farm into two sections, and I decided that this horizontal part, the part that is aligned horizontally with our house, is going to be perennials. And so that just like gave me a lot of direction and organization when I was planning what I wanted to do next. I also have added arbors, and some of these roses are climbing roses, and I'm going to interplant other perennials within this for a cottage garden look. I have plans for foxglove, delphiniums, echinaceas, rudbeckia, perennial phlox. I'm also wondering if I can tuck some ranunculus and anemones, maybe even some daffodils in here. I'm really wanting this area to be a mixture of plants, whereas the cutting rows are all the dahlias together, and then like a section of zinnias, and then a section of gomphrena, and then a section of celosia, and everything's kind of blocked off. Whereas this part of the farm or the garden, I still don't know what to call it, but anyways, I really want everything to just be mixed together, kind of like a painting, just different colors everywhere, different shapes, heights, sizes, maybe even some short stuff that I won't cut on that just kind of helps cover the ground and keep things mulched. But I have a lot of ideas, and I just really like that the framework is starting to go in. There's eventually going to be a third row of perennials right before the property drops off into the hill. And things I want in there are also like echinops and baptisias and just winterberry and other things like that. Now, these delphinium and foxglove seedlings are actually looking very well, all things considered, with the whole fish fertilizer thing. And I did interplant these amongst all the roses. So I just can't wait for the colors and for these to perennialize and just see how the roses look with the foxglove and delphiniums. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do Hortonova netting for the foxglove and delphinium, but in between each of the roses, I don't think I want the roses going up through the Hortonova. So I still need to figure that part out because they're all blooming now and definitely falling over.
This video is chopped up into several parts just because I was having a media storage issue trying to get these videos made and uploaded. So that is the end of part one. Part two will be released shortly as soon as I get it edited and uploaded. And obviously, these are not in real time. So I just have a backlog of videos that I need to get up for you guys. But thank you for watching this one and stay tuned for part two. I'll see you next time. Bye.